Hi everyone and welcome back. It looks like the Q&A is opening up now.
If you're here, go ahead and send us a wave, an emoji, or say hi.
We are so happy for you to join us for our second speaker of the HiTOPS 2023 Trans Youth Forum. My name is Rocky and my pronouns are they, he. I enjoy photography, research, and engaging with my community. I'm 17 years old and this is my first year on the Trans Youth Advisory Board. Just to keep you in the loop, the HiTOPS staff are here behind the scenes and will help moderate the chat today. This is where you can ask questions and share comments. We encourage you to ask us your questions in the chat, and you may hear them being asked.
Hello, I'm Candor. I'm 14 years old. I use they, them pronouns. I enjoy reading and being creative. My biggest goal in life is to make the world a better place. This is my first year on the TYIB.
We have the honor of introducing an amazing human being who is an author,
A playwright,
an entrepreneur.
a philanthropist.
If you didn't know his name before, you'll never forget it after today. Please welcome Tobly McSmith.
Hi everyone. So glad to be here. So honored to be a part of this forum and to be talking to y'all today. Thank you.
Of course. To start off our interview, we always start with an icebreaker question, like you probably seen before in the last one. So Tobly, we know you have cats. How many do you have and what are their names? And will any of them make an appearance today?
Wow, amazing icebreaker. Yes, I have what people call too many cats. I have 3 cats in my 1-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn. They were all street cats, so I saved them, And the oldest one is Bananas, the middle boy is Bam Bam, and the youngest is Boomer, and they're nuts, and I love them. And they're not here. I'm not at my home, and I can't bring them with me, unfortunately.
It's okay. Maybe another time.
Yep.
I don't think 3 cats is too many. I think that's the perfect amount.
You think so?
Yeah.
How many you got?
I have 2 cats. I want a third one though.
You need a third. Yeah, you got to complete the triangle of cat,
Yes. Yeah. So just between us, how many cats would you have if there were no limitations or judgments?
Wow. I feel like I get a lot of judgments for 3 cats, so if that was lifted, I'd probably have a couple more. They love each other, and I feel like they run the house, and I just kind of live there with them and clean up after them and stuff. I'd probably have 10.
Honestly, that's an amazing number. Yeah, I definitely can relate to the cats own the house. You're just living in it,
Right.
Cats
I
are the boss.
pay the rent. I pay the rent for them, and they boss me around.
Of course.
Yeah.
So going into what we're talking about today, you have been around books in one form or another your whole life. Can you tell us a bit about your childhood and what led you to writing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I grew up in Texas. I'm a bit older. I'm 42. I'm about to be 43. So I grew up in the 90s, which is cool now. People like the 90s again, which is awesome. And in Texas, in Austin, which is a little more liberal than a lot of Texas, which I was lucky for. But so I was growing up then. My stepdad restored old books. I really found books to be this place, this safe place where I felt like I could be myself and find myself in the privacy of just me, which I really love and adore books for.
Yeah, that's awesome. I completely understand seeing writing as sort of an escape from what some of the struggles in life and how you can see yourself in it.
For sure. I didn't start writing books till much later too. It was all reading them and biographies and self-help audiobooks when they were just still on cassettes. I've been a book nerd my whole life. No judgment there.
Yeah, of course not. Being a book nerd's awesome.
Yeah.
So what advice would you have for young trans writers who are looking to publish their work?
Yeah, it's so exciting to even talk about this question because when I was growing up, there were no books by trans authors. I mean, maybe they were, but they weren't in the library I went to or the bookstore I went to. It was so hard to find a person I could relate to in a book or even TV. And now we've got more stories being told, different stories, different perspectives. It's amazing. It's awesome. So my advice is write what you know and write what you've learned. You know, I didn't write Stay Gold, my first book, till I was 40. So I had learned a lot by then. But really, like, make it the book and the message you want to tell people, you know, and really keep it right for yourself and your story. And then if that really works, people will get that from it.
Wow, that is great advice. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Mhm. Speaking of, what do you think is the best part of being an author?
Well, best part. You know, other than like talking in these forums and talking to people, I kind of don't like to be in a spotlight of any kind. And so as a writer, you just kind of get to sit back and stay kind of behind your computer and stuff. So I find that to be awesome. But also when people reach out to me who have read the book and it has meant something to them or changed them or helped them, that is just the most incredible feeling.
Yeah, that is a great feeling.
Yeah.
So, what would you say is your most interesting quirk?
Quirk. Oh gosh. Oh wow. Quirk. Interesting. Interesting is an interesting word. I mean, is that like annoying? Or I would probably say, you already know about the cat thing. The cat's a little quirky. Um,
Like maybe a specific writing quirk?
oh yeah. I like to write late at night. That might not be a quirk, but it's a thing. I write from about 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. So I do everything during the day and I write when it's quiet at night, when the cats are sitting around me, and when I can just kind of be in my head.
Yeah, that sounds like a great part of your writing process.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely.
I pace a lot when I write. There's a quirk. I get up, I pace around, I'll sit back down. That's pretty quirky, I'd say.
Yeah, definitely. So, speaking of, like, what do you think makes a good story? And do you think your quirks like actually like help you create like a better story?
Hmm. A good story to me, and it's so different for everybody. And I feel like when you read a book from a writer, you can tell what's really important to them. And what makes a story great for me is when it like touches me, when it makes me cry. Like crying is such a thing that if it's done that, like it's really like hits a nerve in me and like opened me up or like touched on something I needed to feel. And so that's what I'm really trying to do with my books too, is really make people feel something, whether they're trans, non-binary, or cis, just to feel something is the connection I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely feeling that connection between the writer and like the audience is such an important thing.
Right. Yeah.
So now that we know a little bit more about your writing process, I kind of want to know, do you ever experience writer's block? If so, how do you overcome it?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You know, writer's block can come in little, like maybe there's one day I'm just emotionally exhausted or something and I can't get there no matter how much I pace or pet my cats or whatever. I can't get in there, and that's okay. That happens. You just kind of let it sit. A longer writer's block means I'm too deep in it. I need to step away from the story, kind of like see the big picture of it, because you get so close. You're writing every word of every page in a 300 pages. So like stepping back from your book and letting it just sit and marinate in you. A writer's block can actually be the most helpful thing that you go through, because it means you got to work something out before you get the story to where you need it. But it's also frustrating, and that's always true about it.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think there's a book that made you want to become a writer?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh gosh, no. You know, I moved to New York when I was 23, and I loved books, so I started looking immediately in publishing, and I worked at HarperCollins, the company that published my book, for 16 years. So I feel like I've been inundated with books, and there's not just one, it's just the whole process of the writer and then the publisher and the editor fixing it up and the copywriter fixing all the mistakes and then the marketing people and the sales people, and like every step of it is so incredible. It's really like the writer is just one part of this whole process that's so big and beautiful, and I get excited about it. And so, and I forgot the question kind of, but yeah, so it wasn't one book. There we go. I got it. It was a bunch of books. You know, it was it was books, just the whole headiness of publishing too.
Mhm.
Yeah, so do you have any favorite queer authors that you don't think get enough attention?
Oof. Um, it's wonderful how much attention queer writers are getting right now. Leah Johnson's one of my favorite. Cemetery Boys is a great trans book. There's so many coming out. Sorted is a book by a friend, Jackson. There's so many books that it's just inspiring. Like you go into a bookstore and there's like a queer section, which is mind blowing. That's like within the last 10 years that's happened. You know, it's pretty new and very new that there's trans and non-binary writers in this section. So that it's so exciting. When I was young, like y'all's age, I was really into self-help and Stephen King, which I love Stephen King. He's just an amazing writer. He doesn't write with an outline. And that's why his books are like 500 pages long, but also self-help books. So I don't think those are cool anymore, but they actually are very helpful if you're dealing with something, to find a book by an author that's dealt with it or it's about it and really reading it. That is incredible.
Yeah, that is really incredible. Going back to like queer authors being in this space finally, I'm
Yeah.
curious if you feel that queer/trans authors have a responsibility to write books with like a message or have like an obligation to educate people, or is it just okay for it to be entertainment?
All of it. It's okay for it to be entertainment for sure. We just need more stories because there's so many different ways to be trans and non-binary and to live in this world. And the more stories we get out there with the different kinds, people will understand us more and more and more. So I think that's just a huge part of it. You know, I think that as we get more stories too, I think it will just be kind of normalized, which will be this huge thing. You know, growing up in the 90s to here and how it's moving, like the progress is always what I want to celebrate here. There's so much progress we've made. And I know there's so many laws and bills right now that are scary and so many people that still don't accept and understand us, but that changes every day. And so like, I try to remain really hopeful. I got way off topic here, but I try to remain really hopeful that this progress is continuing and it will continue as long as we believe and just be who we are, whether that story is entertaining or has a message or anything. Just us existing is this beautiful thing that's happening more and more.
That's an amazing answer for that audience question. Like, wow. Sorry, I'm kind of blown away by that.
I just noticed your eyeshadow. I'm kind of blown away
Oh,
by
thank
that.
you. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
So moving on to your books, I want to jump into them. Audience, if you haven't read these books, you need to ASAP. I know our Trans Youth Advisory Board, Danella, read them both in 3 days. Like, that's
Whoa.
crazy. And Stay Gold, I know you wrote from both perspectives of Pony, the main character who's transgender, and Georgia, who is meeting someone who's transgender for the first time. Why is that important for you to portray?
Yeah, you know, I said it in Texas, and that felt very important. That felt important to me because that's where I grew up. And I wanted this story, even from the beginning, to reach trans and non-binary people and to have them feel seen in a way that I really had never felt. But I also wanted cis and the rest of the world to read this and experience this story, because there's still quite a few cis people like George at the beginning of the story who've never met a trans person, who don't know what to say to them, who feel scared about saying the wrong thing. It's a lot. It can be scary. And so I wanted the ability to read a story like that and kind of go through the process with them so that when maybe they meet a trans person after reading the story, they're more accepting and empathetic. Empathy is what helps us accept people and accept things. So I really tried to do that with Stay Gold.
Wow, like how important do you think empathy is to truly like understanding each other?
It's it. You know, I came out 10 years ago. So I came out when I was 33, which is also so inspiring about being in a trans youth forum where people are coming out and finding themselves younger and younger. That is so amazing. But I had this aunt who lived in a small town in Texas, and she is very into the church, very unaccepting of everything that the church tells her not to accept. And so I was the most worried about telling her that I was trans when I was coming out to my family. And I told her, she knew about it. And then I saw her a few months later and I didn't know what she was going to say to me. I thought she was going to say some weird stuff, but she came up and hugged me. And she said that she now tells people at her church, about me and about trans people. And I feel like that's the empathy that worked. Like she finally had someone in her life that was trans, understood it more, and now wants to go and help other people understand it. And that's what I think empathy does for people. You walk a mile in somebody's shoes, you just understand them more. And it's moving and it helps you care about people and fight for them, which is my hope for the book too.
Wow, that's such an impactful story. Like, I definitely can relate to so much of our lives.
Right.
Yes, definitely. Me too.
Yeah. That aunt doesn't know I talk about her, but it's a good story. So we're cool.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what made you choose to reference the outsiders in the title and the character name in Stay Gold?
Yes. It kind of all came to me at once, the book idea. Sometimes, I don't know if you all have experienced this, if you're a writer or creative, like you just get this idea and it comes and it keeps coming and it fleshes itself out. And The Outsiders was always kind of this book that existed, and I read it in high school or middle school and always existed. And Stay Gold was always a mantra from that book that I knew. But when I transitioned, I saw it in a different way. I saw staying gold as staying true to yourself. When you go back and read The Outsiders, staying gold in that book in the 50s was staying innocent in a world that was violent. That was what I pulled from that message: to stay innocent, to not be violent, to not do this. And I thought that'd be great for trans people if we could stay innocent to the violence around us, but we really can't. We're in it, we're experiencing it, we're seeing it. So to me, staying gold is staying true to yourself, regardless of what's happening, even when it's scary, really like staying true to yourself, even when people don't believe it or against you, like just staying true to yourself. So it felt like I was doing a little update on The Outsiders with my own kind of spin and my own kind of look at it. And it's also an inspiring, that was one of the first YA books that ever came out, and it was in the 50s. She was like 17 when she wrote it. So it felt like an homage to the genre too, a little bit.
Wow. After hearing you say that, I look at that book completely differently now, and I just appreciate it so much more.
Yeah, it's antiquated. It's from the 50s, but it's interesting to take a look at things like that and to put it through the modern lens and see what happens.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I definitely think The Outsiders is one of those books that has like a very universal message.
For sure.
Mm-hmm. Anyways, going back to Texas, you said you chose Texas for the setting of the book because that's where you grew up. Are any of the characters inspired by people in your life? And are any characters modeled after yourself?
I would say, and especially your first book, and if there's writers here and you're writing your first book, a lot of your first experience will go into it. And a lot of the characters in the book are composites of people I've known and things they've said and people I've imagined. And so I group that together and kind of make that person whole by a whole bunch of little things I've known from people or picked up by observing. So there are a lot of people I know there. And when you're writing your first book, really it is kind of a lot of your first experience. Not everything that happened to Pony happened to me, but a lot of it did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So is writing your first book kind of sort of expressing yourself through writing in a way?
I think it can be. I mean, I don't know everybody else's first book experience, but for me, it was. And Pony in Stay Gold goes stealth. He hides that he's trans as he goes into a new school. And there's a lot of times in my life that I've been stealth in situations and had the things said to me that Pony's was said and had those moments. And so it felt really important to show that kind of element to being trans, because it's a thing.
It definitely is. And it's definitely hard to figure out whether or not oh, should I hide who I am or should I show it?
Right. And I always feel like you have different levels. Like you're in a group and you're like, this person knows this about me. This person knows my pronouns. And it feels like you have to keep it all straight sometimes, which is exhausting emotionally and, mentally.
Mhm.
Yeah, so now we want to transition to talking about your sophomore novel, Act Cool. It is ultimately a book about self-acceptance, and it's not only for teens and young adults, but for everyone. How did it feel to set out to write this after your success with Stay Gold?
Uh, I had gotten some advice to finish your second book before your first book comes out, because reviews start coming out and people start messaging you and it can shift your writing and kind of, so I really did try to finish it. And I did, I think I finished the first draft before Stay Gold went out. But this was also at the beginning of the pandemic, which was a crazy time to write. I was living in Manhattan. It was all shut down, which gave me a lot of time to write. And it felt important to write this book because it felt like something I had seen. I'm in theater. I've been in theater many years, and there's a lot of talk around how to include trans and non-binary people in theater. And so it felt like throughout Cool, I could talk about these things and show the perspective of a trans actor,
Mhm.
Yeah, it's great that you used your own experiences to write these books and to make them, more like understandable for the readers.
Yeah. I mean, if you're a writer, that's the best thing to do. Like, use what you've been through. And it's also a great way to feel and go through the emotions of the things you went through. There was parts of writing Stay Gold and Act Cool that I felt like ill and sick, and it's never easy to dig into those hard feelings and hard moments, but man, when you get through it and you write it and it's there, it's worth it. It's worth it, but it's hard. It can be hard.
Mhm. Yeah, in Act Cool, there is a storyline where August gets cast as a trans actor in a new play. From your experience, how does the theater world adapt and is reworking to accommodate transgender creatives at the moment?
Yeah, so this is kind of a really big thing. And I think right now the Tonys are trying to figure out how to categorize non-binary actors who are nominated for them and like the gendered roles. And it's tricky. And we're all kind of dealing with this. It's not new. Trans people have been around for a long time and acting for a long time, but it's new that there's so much of it. And it's interesting to watch everything shift. There's a lot of talk about cis actors playing trans parts, and that's a no-go, right? And that's very true, especially right now. But what I want to see is more trans people playing cis parts and more trans people getting parts like in superhero movies and things like that, and not having their storyline necessarily be about them being trans. And I'm seeing that in shows and stuff, which is great, in theater. But we just need more trans actors doing more cis roles, because there's probably like one or two trans or non-binary roles, characters on Broadway, and hundreds of actors. So that's not really, it feels like we're starting to compete against each other in lots of ways, whereas we should be looked at for all the roles. We can play any gender, and everyone has their preferred gender to play, and like they can do it well. So I think we need to get in the world like that.
Yes, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely more of like a fresh take than like what I've been hearing, like in terms of like, yes, I do agree that like trans people, cis people should not play trans roles, but like I haven't really heard that much about like how we should get like more trans people to play cis roles. That's like such an interesting take, and I think it's would be very helpful for society and just for more visibility in general.
Totally. And I hope people get that from the book. And I hope in my small part in the theater world, I can help push that along. And okay, I went to a theater, it was like off Broadway years ago, and there was a trans character. And the trans character was bullied and yelled at and beaten up in this play. And it was so hard to watch. And it was a trans character doing it. And in that moment, I said, maybe a cis person should play trans roles where the trans person's getting bullied, and and it would be very tough for a trans person to be in that role. Maybe in those instances, it could be okay for a cis person to play that role, but only if there's more trans people hired as cis people. I think the balance needs to shift a little.
Yeah, that makes complete sense.
It was a hard thing to watch, a trans person getting called all the
Yeah.
names and stuff. It just felt like, wow, I mean, that must have been a hard role for that person to play too.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I really want to know how long it took you to write your novels from first draft to publication.
Okay, I'm a little nutty and I don't want y'all to go by this because I just like work very hard and work continually, but Stay Gold, from idea to finished draft, it took about a year. That was some of the the edits too. It took me about 7 months to write the first draft, which is nuts. And I had never written a full book. This was my first time to sit down. In college, I studied business. Like I wasn't a writer, but I loved books. I read a lot of books, and I kind of started at zero too. I went and I bought How to Write YA for Dummies. You know those For Dummies books that are like, I was willing to go down to zero and see what they were saying just so I could keep on making this book really, really good. It felt so important to make this book like work and the message to get across and for people to really get from it. So on top of writing it for 7 months, I was like studying how to do YA and reading a bunch of YA. And then once you turn in the final draft, then you have like a year for it to be published because the publishing team needs time to get it out and show the librarians and the booksellers. So it took about 2 years for Stay Gold and then 2 years for Act Cool, all up. It's a slow process.
That's great that it didn't take more, like I would think it would take like 5 years, but 2 years is great. And writing a book in 7 months, or at least the first draft, is really incredible.
Well, that was nutty. I had a full-time job too. I was doing theater, and I'd show up every night from 9 to 1 and I'd write every single night, even if it was just a page. I'd try to write 3 pages, and then day after day you build a book from that. So really when it's writing, you have to show up to that schedule that you made for yourself and make the time for yourself and do it. And it's so lonely. You're on page like 200 and you're like, no one's read this. Is this junk? What am I doing? But you just keep going and believe in yourself. You just have to really believe in yourself. And it took me a lot of years to do that. So it's okay if you don't fully believe in yourself now, but just keep going, you know?
Yeah, that's great advice. So now we have some audience questions.
All right.
From audience member Giovanni. They ask, I'm currently reading Act Cool and I love it. I was wondering if August was based off of anyone in particular.
I have a couple of trans friends that are actors. I'm not an actor. I don't like to be on stage. I don't like that. But I've been around actors for all my life. And I feel like a lot of the actors I've known, August is a composite of that. And his family is not accepting of him. He's from Pennsylvania, a small town. And that felt like such an important relationship to write, and for him to confront his parents and to kind of go from there, which was, the book's about theater and acting in New York, but it's also about accepting when your family doesn't accept you, and just because it's a very real thing. And no matter what you do, sometimes they're still not going to accept you. And it's accepting that that's them and not you. You know, you are who you are and you're figuring it out. And they're what they believe about you, you know, you have to kind of push that out, even when it's somebody you really, really love. And so that's a huge message in Act Cool. I hope I didn't ruin that for the person reading it.
No, it's great that you got to kind of show that type of story in a book. I think a lot of people will really benefit from that.
Yeah.
Definitely. So what age do you think is best for folks to read your books? And from this audience member, they also asked, what grade should teachers incorporate these books in their lesson plans?
I've heard from all ages, you know, a heads up on both books, and there's a trigger warning at the beginning of them. It deals with tougher stuff. It deals with some really dark stuff at the end of Stay Gold, and even Act Cool, it gets tough to read. And so having that clear, like, teachers should definitely read it and decide. High schools are reading it for sure. I've gotten a message from some middle school kids, but that might be a little too young unless you're like super advanced. And then all ages after that too, but just having the heads up that there's a rom-com elements in both of them, but it handles some very, very hard issues.
Yeah, I understand that. And definitely, like, when people can like be old enough to understand these more complex ideas too, that's definitely like when they should start reading it as well.
For sure.
Yes. So we have another audience question. Somebody asks, how do you reply to people who want to ban books? How can trans youth work to ensure access to all books?
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird time with all these bills and all the banning, and it's a lot of noise. It's a lot of noise. And I know it's happening in people's libraries and things. And I think I don't even know, but what I do see is that people are figuring out how to get these books out to people without needing the library and without needing these places that aren't welcoming to these books for whatever reasons. So it's continuing to find these books that are banned, continuing to spread the message about them. And I think this will just be kind of interesting to watch unfold. They need to find other things to be concerned with, but we'll watch and see, and we'll just keep getting message out about these books and getting them into people's hands. Sometimes when you tell people they can't have it, they want it more. So that's always a good thing too.
Yeah. And one good opportunity for like people to actually access more books is actually at our HiTOPS lending library. We actually have several copies of your books, such as like Stay Gold and Act Cool. And like people can just come in and like grab like a book, and they're just and can borrow it and then bring it back when they're done with it. And there's no book bans, obviously. It's completely free. And I think it's just a good opportunity to maybe like help like have like a local like organization help combat this as well.
That's amazing that y'all do that. That's really great.
Yes, I love the lending library. That's actually how I first read Act Cool, is I got it from the HiTOPS lending library.
Wow. I'm gonna send y'all some more copies of the books. I got plenty.
Great, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Underground libraries are cooler anyways. Like getting these books through these means, come on, that just makes it cooler.
Definitely. So we have another audience question. Do you have any interest in writing adult books or books for other ages, or do you think you're just going to stick with YA?
Great question. I want to write an adult book. I'm working on another YA. It should be on like a year and a half. As we talked about, it's such a slow process. But yes, want to move into adult, maybe someday do a kind of a self-helpish book like the ones that inspired me when I was young. So yeah, I'm going to write as many books as I can in my lifetime.
That's awesome. Like, I'm glad. It's really cool how you have like such ambitious goals to like write as much as you can. And I think that's super inspiring.
Nice.
So moving on to the Stay Gold Foundation, I would love to talk to you about the organization you founded. Could you tell us what inspired you to start this project?
Sure. So excited. I love talking about the Stay Gold Foundation. So what we do in the Stay Gold Foundation is we provide gender affirming resources to people who need them. The first one being healthcare. So we raised $60,000 to give out grants. We've actually been through the applications, and we'll be giving 5 grants out shortly to people who need gender affirming healthcare and can't afford it or have access to it. So important. The second part of our organization, we have a closet, Stay Gold Garments. And a lot of people in their first year or so of transition, adults and teens alike, like it's a little scary to go shop for clothing, especially in cities in the US that might be a little harder to do this in. So we have a form on our Instagram. Please look up the Stay Gold Foundation. You fill out the form and we send you a box of clothing styled to you. We have a stylist who works for movies who puts the boxes together, and we do clothing drives in Brooklyn. So we have really cool clothes, and we send out free boxes of clothing to people. We've sent 50 this year already, and we're already in March, and we did 100 last year. So we're really like gaining this up. Where the foundation came from, to answer that question now, is when I was writing Stay Gold. This was 2017 or 18, and Donald Trump was president, and he was really throwing down some laws against transgender people. And the one that had hit me, I'm writing this book at night, and Trump banned trans people from serving in the military, which felt just mind-blowing. And he said he was doing it because of the high cost of gender affirming healthcare, which if you look at the research, it's not a huge part of their money. And that was just heartbreaking, because getting the access to this healthcare is so important to people's journeys and to their feelings and to like being able to exist in the world. And so I wanted to make sure that Stay Gold, the book, any dollars I got from the book would help this. So that's where it got kicked off. You can find more info on Stay Gold Foundation Instagram or website? Yes. Did I answer all the questions you were going to ask about it?
We do have a few more questions, but that's just like that's amazing. Like that's so inspiring that like you're doing this much work to try to like not only provide like gender affirming care for trans people, but also like give them access to clothing that's like gender affirming and everything. And I can definitely relate to how after that that bill was passed banning transgender people from being in the military, how like that was like a very saddening experience because it's like, oh, like we're Americans too, we deserve to serve in the military, you know?
Right. And I don't know if this is appropriate for this, but Viagra was such a huge part of the medical budget of the Army, and gender affirming was like a tiny bit. And it's like, okay, well, maybe you should take out the Viagra and see what happens if you're that worried about medical budgets.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yeah.
just seemed ridiculous.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So this is actually a good opportunity for us to talk about our clothing closet here at HiTOPS.
Oh.
It is a free resource for young people ages 11 to 24. It provides access to identity-affirming clothing, toiletries, and self-care items. It is created by the Trans Youth Advisory Board. The closet is made possible through generous donations from HiTOPS supporters. This program is offered to alleviate the often financial burden of transitioning or coming out. We understand the importance of having safe, judgment-free access to clothes that align with who you are. This is just like the Stay Gold Foundation.
Nice. I love that y'all are doing that too. That's all. Is it like you can go to the closet, or it's like you fill out a form?
Yeah. So you basically go to the closet and you can look at all the items, and there's no charge for taking pieces at all.
Wow.
And you can like take a piece, and it's a really cool way to like kind of like express yourself and like experiment with different like clothes and everything. There's actually monthly pop-up sessions at the closet at HiTOPS, which is pretty cool. So it's more than just like once a year or anything like that. Like there's multiple opportunities for people to come in and like take things, which is awesome.
That's incredible.
Yes, if anybody who is watching this is interested in stopping by at the pop-up closet, you can see the dates on the HiTOPS website and on their Instagram.
Nice. Good for y'all for doing that.
Thank you.
So the Stay Gold Foundation has helped so many people. Do you have any plans to expand the foundation in the future?
Oh, for sure. For sure. And I put as much money as I can into it and raise money for it. And we want to keep providing different resources. Like I'm sure y'all think about too, like haircuts they can be really scary to go get your hair cut. So we want to do pop-ups and do haircuts, and like there's so many resources that trans people need. And I feel like if we can just get them what they need, they can live the life they want to live. And that motivates me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that is great. I can't wait for you to expand.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be really cool. Going back to what you're doing right now, approximately how many packages have you sent out, like through the Stay Gold Foundation?
Yeah, so we've sent about 150 all up, and we're continuing we get like 15 out a week or 20. The fun part about our closet and the organization that I'm really trying to do is all the labor, all the hard work is done by cis people. So trans people are parts of the creative decisions and the boards and stuff, but all the work's done by cis people. And I feel like that's really important.
Mm-hmm. That is very important, because it is important for trans people to be a part of it, but we need some more people to actually help us do the heavy lifting as well.
Exactly.
That's
yes,
amazing.
I definitely think that the HiTOPS Closet and the Stay Gold Foundation should collab at some point. Yep. That would be amazing.
I love it. We'll figure that out. Done. It's done.
Mm-hmm.
Yay!
Yeah, that would be so cool. So moving on from the Stay Gold Foundation to actually theater. I know you have a background in producing parody musicals of popular TV shows. Which one has been your favorite to do so far?
Oh, I mean, so we've done 10 now. We're working on our 10th parody. We do musical theater. Me and my best friend, we've been doing this for 15 years. We started in like small bars and moved it to off-Broadway. They play in Poland. They play in Australia. It's crazy. The most successful one is Friends, the musical, based on the TV show Friends, which everybody loves. The Office is one of my favorite. Both of these are playing in New York right now. We're about to launch a Seinfeld parody. So they're all these crazy things that kind of make fun of the show, but also like love the show. Like I love The Office. That's my favorite show. Seinfeld is good too. Friends, I can't watch anymore. I've watched it too much. But a lot of these shows like Saved by the Bell and 90210, I grew up with. So it's fun for us to kind of make fun of these things that have inspired a lot of generations, like Saved by the Bell and 90210. And if you know those shows, you're over 30 then probably.
Yeah. So it's almost like you're like showing how much you love them, but also like taking a spin on them and like having some fun with it too. That's really
Right.
cool.
Making fun of the things like in Friends, they all live in these huge apartments in New York, and it's like, and they don't really work jobs, and it's like, nah, that's not real. Like that's not that. There's a lot of stuff to make fun of, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm sure that the theater folks watching would love to know how exactly you first got into theater.
Yeah, you know, this, I said earlier, I went to business school. So I never thought I'd be a writer or in theater or doing books or anything I'm doing. Um, and then I came to New York because I knew I liked to entertain people. I like to make people laugh. And I met my friend, and we felt like the theater world was so far away. You know, we lived in the East Village. We felt like you can't break into the theater world. It's very like you have to know people, and it felt elusive. So we said, let's do our own thing. We started our own thing doing these like theater shows and bars and building it up. So really, like if you're out there and you're doing theater, you know, go for those parts and try to be a part of things that are already happening, because it's great. It's great to network, but also like figure out what you want to do and go out there and try to do it. Even if it's, our first show was in a small bar, 40 people were standing through the whole thing. There was no air conditioner. It was in the summer. I mean, don't be afraid to start at the smallest place and build, because that's really like, we all dream of being to the farthest along, maybe on Broadway or something, but you got to start small and you have to do the work. Like we put on the shows, we would mop the floors, we take the tickets, we wrote the shows, we directed it, we did everything at the beginning. And that's really what you have to do if you really believe in something and want to kind of keep it going. So don't be afraid to get your hands dirty and to start for 3 people and build it to 6 people and build it to 10 people, you know, like it's okay. People will support you and want you to succeed that way.
Yes, that was very inspirational.
So moving on to something that I think is honestly kind of funny. Is it true that you were sued by Andrew Lloyd Webber because of one of the parodies you wrote called the Kardashians?
Yeah. That is true. True story. So one of our 10 parodies is called the Kardashians. So we tell the story of the Kardashians through Cats the musical. So it's like a whole bunch of Kardashian looking cats. You could probably Google Kardashian the musical to see pictures, and it was incredible. It was so funny. It was so irreverent. It was so silly. And Andrew Lloyd Webber, I guess, heard about it, and he tried to sue us and sent a lawyer to every show to watch it and sent us notes. It was crazy. He was like bullying us. It was nuts. And it really had nothing to do with his show, but we got a lot of press from that. That was awesome. So, you know, sometimes getting the people mad, you know, it can just kick up some dust that helps you.
Honestly, that's really funny, but I'm glad it helped you out. I mean, you know, take what you can get, right?
I just love that Andrew Lloyd Webber, Sir Andrew, had to say Kardashians. Like he had to like repeatedly say that name and like talk about, like, I love that. I love that. And it all ended up okay. So that's great.
Yeah, that's great. But that's really funny, honestly.
Yeah, whenever I am sad, now I'm just going to think about him saying that over and over and over again.
Kardashians. We kept trying to put it in his Wikipedia, but they kept taking it out, you know?
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really funny.
Yeah.
So Perez Hilton was in one of your parodies. How was
Yeah.
it working with him?
Yeah. So Perez, not Paris. And I don't know if tons of people, do y'all know Perez Hilton? Is he like relevant to the young people today?
Kind of, yeah.
Good. He's a buddy. We text all the time. Whenever I need some celebrity gossip, I text him directly. But Perez came to see one of our shows, and said he wanted to be in one of our shows, and we were doing Full House based on the original Full House with Bob Saget. And so he played Danny Tanner. And he went off book a lot. He yelled a lot of things, but he was so supportive. He took the same pay as the other actors, which was like $100 a show, which was so incredibly generous of him. He just wanted to be a part of the theater, and it was a fun experience. Yeah.
That sounds very fun.
Yeah.
So we have another audience question. Did Andrew Lloyd Webber drop the lawsuit? Did you win? How did it end?
I love it. So a few of the songs we did were parodies of the Cats musical songs, and we used close like sounds to it. So we changed some melodies in some of the songs, and also the news articles started coming out, and it made him look really bad. Like, he's so rich and so famous. Why is he coming after this show? So a little bit of that and a little bit of us just changing a few things kept us straight with it. Yeah, we're best friends now. We hang out every Christmas.
Wow.
No, I'm kidding, but could you imagine?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that'd be pretty funny if you did, though.
That would someday, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Speaking of, is there a play or a musical that have inspired you in your own work?
Did y'all hear about The Prom? The Prom was such a great Broadway musical about two lesbians, and oh, that was beautiful. And there's been a few, but really what we were trying to do with our parodies was do something different. Back in that time, the internet was still getting started. There was like MySpace. There was no Facebook even yet or anything. So there was The Onion was like a big publication. It was like a parody publication, and everybody wanted to work for The Onion. It was like the coolest thing. And I read an interview by The Onion creators, and they said, everyone wants to do this, but they need to go find their own things, because that's kind of what The Onion did. They found their own thing. So it really inspired us to be like, well, what is our own thing? What can we go do in this be? And we loved TV shows, and we loved making fun of them, and we loved parody songs. So you just kind of find what you like and like do your own thing. Like, go do it. Just go do it. And if you work hard enough and make enough people believe it, like, it's going to happen for you.
Wow, that was a great answer. So how do you feel that we can grow and improve artistic spaces to be more inclusive and affirming so that queer artists are supported in pursuing roles that align with their truth and creative vision?
Yeah, my first thought is Broadway, and Broadway is defined by seat number, right? If it's over like 500 seats, it's Broadway. If it's under 500, it's off Broadway. If it's under 99, it's off Broadway. And what happened, especially since the pandemic, is a lot of off Broadway theaters have closed. So we've really been losing those kind of venues to host these kind of different events and these different plays and stuff. And that's really scary, because we need more spaces to do these things and to introduce them and to get the following and to build it so it can go to off Broadway and then Broadway. Hamilton started off Broadway too. Like, everything starts and grows. So I hope we can find more spaces. They don't have to be theater spaces. We started in bars. So don't limit yourself to a theater or anything. Find your own space, create a space, create your own safe space to do your own thing too. Find that. So we need to find more of those spaces that feel safe and more marketing around that and everything. So I guess it's just growing the small things into big things.
Yeah,
definitely.
That makes a lot of sense, and sort of connects to back what you were saying before about how you need to find your own thing and like start off small and let it grow,
And don't be afraid to fail. Oh my God, we've done some parodies and no one's shown up. We've tried to do some things and it was just empty. But it's in the failure that I've grown the most. I've gotten closer to what I want to do. Like, don't be afraid to fail, and don't do it for social media. Like, really do it for yourself. And it's okay. Failure feels awful, but you move past it and you say, that all happened to teach me this and to bring me here. So it's okay to feel like you're not moving fast enough, or that you failed, or that something's not working. You just have to keep figuring it out.
So speaking of like your other ventures and sort of doing your own thing, recently you opened a kava bar in New York City. What inspired you to venture into that?
Yes. So kava is a non-alcoholic drink. I stopped drinking alcohol 15 years ago. Kava is from the Polynesian Islands. It's this muddy dirt drink. It's for 18 and over. So, but what inspired me was I gave up drinking and I lost going to bars. Like bars aren't as fun when you're not drinking. And so I found kava. I found these kava bars, and inside the kava bars are communities of people who accept you, who are caring, who you can laugh with and joke with. It's just great people. So I always wanted to create this kava bar. So I found the right location in Manhattan and I built it, and it's open. It's been open for 2 months. So what inspired me was to create this space, this non-alcoholic space where people can be themselves and have a good time. And that's it. Like that's the goal.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
it's great that you were able to build a business and create a safe and affirming space.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just started. Things always, but like that's the hope. Just keeping it simple and fun, and that's it. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, do you have any goals for your career that you have yet to accomplish? Any new projects in the works?
And it's funny, when I was a kid, when I was y'all's age, I didn't ever, like, if someone had told me, hey, you're going to write books and you're going to open a bar and all, I wouldn't have believed them. And it wasn't even on my radar. I just kept moving forward with what felt right then and what inspired me and what motivated me, and like open. You have to stay open to the world around you and to what you're seeing, and going with what feels right. I'm writing that third book. We're working on a new musical. There's other things down the pipeline. It's just like, it all takes a minute. It all feels like you have to hold some stuff secretly, like writing a whole long book by yourself, but you just have to stick with it. You just stick with it, just keep going and work hard. Like the hard work will make the difference. That's the only thing I've done right in my life, is I've worked incredibly hard. Y'all can too.
Yeah, that's amazing. So we actually have some audience questions. So our first audience question is, how do you reply when people ask you personal questions that are uncomfortable or that you don't want to answer?
It, and before I wrote Stay Gold, right, I didn't necessarily tell people I was trans in our first conversation. But now, if anybody's like, so what do you do? I bring up that I wrote a book. I have to come out to almost everybody I'm talking to, which has definitely opened the door for more uncomfortable conversations and people thinking they can ask questions. And I think it's just, I'll answer more questions because I want to educate people. And if I feel comfortable answering that question and I feel like I'm not going to be attacking them or too upset about it, I'll try to answer it because I really do want to educate and help people understand the trans experience. But if it goes too far, if it's about something I don't want to talk about, you just shut them down. Just say, I don't know, maybe you could look that up, or I don't feel like talking about that, or make a little joke and like get out of it. But you don't have to answer anything you don't want to answer.
Mm-hmm. That is
So
definitely
we have
Mhm.
so we have another audience question. This audience member says, I am a pit orchestra musician. How did you get the keyboard patches and MTI sheet music, etc., so the musicians could have the music for it?
I love that. I love that. I don't know. We have a composer. The composer makes all that stuff. At the beginning, when we were doing the musicals in bars, me and Bob, the friend that write it, we would play the music. I'd play the bass, he'd play the guitar. Now we have a band. Sometimes we'll do recorded tracks. So if you are in the pit, you're doing just keep meeting people, just keep networking, keep meeting playwrights, keep meeting people, and they'll want to work with you and they'll want to bring you in and they'll want to keep this going. I'm sorry, I don't have an answer too technical about that stuff though. I just write the jokes and the fart jokes and stuff.
That's an important job too.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
so
that is an
important.
important job. I
So
mean,
important.
come on now.
Yeah,
So going back to your cats, here's another audience question.
I love it.
What is your favorite type of cat and what color,
Oh yeah, I love a tabby. I love a tabby. I have my youngest 1-year-old is an orange cat, and orange cats are always so nutty and smart and energetic, and I really love that energy. Black cats and white cats are cute. I have a white cat. I don't know, they're all so different. They're all so different. And that's what I love about them. They have these personalities and they're not going to change for you. They're like, this is who I am.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now we have an audience comment from Rebecca. They say, I don't actually have a question, but I want to say that all of you are improving the world by just existing. You are all so valuable by the virtue of being yourselves.
Aw,
Nice. That's sweet.
that's so
Yes, that is so
kind.
nice.
And it's so true. Everyone listening to this, every trans youth, every person on this, like, we're all doing this amazing thing by existing and pushing this forward and having conversations and creating closets and trying to give back. Like, it's just that you just try to make the world better. Like you started this with, that was your goal, right? You want to make the world better. Like, what a beautiful thing to set out and do.
Definitely.
Yeah.
That's so great. We have another audience question. So I know you said you have a new book in the works. Do you have anything that you can tease about it at the moment?
Yeah. I mean, so I kind of was working on one book. I wrote 200 pages on it and I put it down. That book might come back to write this other book. This book I'm writing is about a trans kid in the 90s. So way in line with my experience to kind of, I want to show, because I want to show what it's like just 30 years ago, 20 or 30 years ago, what it was like to be trans in high school compared to now, just to kind of like really show that experience and show how we kind of, I didn't even fully meet a trans person until I moved to New York. I was 25 when I met my first trans person. So I want to show this world that's in our lifetime that looked kind of completely different, which is kind of incredible how far we've come since then. And the kid's a mascot. I was a mascot in high school. I dressed up like a big bulldog and danced around. So that's kind of what the book's about.
That's awesome. It sounds like it's going to be great.
Yes, I
Okay.
am so excited for this new book.
Nice. I'll send you all early copies for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So lastly, because you're a wordsmith, do you have a favorite quote that you could leave us with?
Oh God. I guess I'll leave you with what, anytime I do one of these or talk to people, I always think, someone told me this, you're trying to connect, not impress. And that's how I've kind of lived my life since I've heard this quote. Like, there's a big part of the world that we have to impress everybody with our pictures on social and yada yada, but just connecting like this and having these conversations and not trying to impress, but trying to like feel a connection has been the most rewarding and amazing thing that I can do. And it kind of takes the nerves off of public speaking, because I'm not trying to impress you. I'm just trying to connect with you, you know? So there's that.
That's so great. So thank you so much for joining us today. We really
Yeah.
appreciate you taking the time to talk to us and sharing about your life. Where can we keep up to date that all that you're doing?
You can follow me on the Instagram. I post every once in a while. The Stay Gold Foundation Instagram too. Yeah, I'll reply to DMs. If you send me a DM, I'll really try to reply to them. So that's probably the best way.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, y'all have a great day. Good luck with the rest of the forum. It's been great to be here.
And thank you to everyone for tuning in from home, and to all of you who shared your questions and comments with us, and a big shout out to our amazing sponsors.
The Trans Youth Advisory Board's August and Jamie will be back at 2 p.m. for a conversation with our next amazing speakers of the day, our very own Trans Youth Advisory Board. Meet the youth leaders behind the HiTOPS Trans Youth Forum. You won't want to miss it.
Nice.
See you next time. We love you, Tobly.
Bye.
Bye. Have a great day.
Have a good one.
Bye.